We gear up for the Packers' first preseason game versus the Jets. We will tell you who we have our eye on in today's game and who has the most at stake. We also talk Packers injuries and the impact those might have on this roster.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sounds Gouda. My name is Jordan Olson. My co-host and best friend over here is Rob Relf. And thank you to any new and returning listeners. We are always excited to be talking Packers football with you, but we are extra excited because we have a Packers preseason game tonight against the Jets, and all of this, all of our draft picks, the free agency, training camp reports, we're going to get to see these players play some real action in tonight's game and see some football again. And it's just been a blessing and a lot of fun to have football back in the news, back on the TVs, and we're ready to jump in and talk all about it. So just a reminder before we jump into that we do have new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And we're still continuing our promo for every 50 new subscribers. We're doing our raffle, and then any public subscribers that join during that time will be entered in for a chance to win some Sounds Gouda swag. So go ahead and subscribe if you have not. So just one other housekeeping thing. So now that we're getting into the preseason, kind of expect our shows to look like this over the next few weeks. We're going to be doing some game previews, talk about some camp battles and some players that we're going to be watching in the upcoming games. Following those games, we're going to do some game recaps, do some 53-man roster updates every week. We hope to throw in a guest or two. So that's kind of what to expect between now and the start of the regular season. Before we talk Jets, there's been a plethora of news for the Packers in the last couple days, including a couple on the injury front. So, Rob, you want to jump into any of those updates, and we can kind of talk about what that means for the preseason, what it means for the Packers roster, etc.
Yeah, well, the offensive line depth is already getting tested. Travis Glover is done for the year. He had a shoulder injury. Is ascending a player according to Matt LaFleur, but this does open up a competition for that 9th spot, either Jennings, Telford, or maybe we'll see an appearance from John Williams one of these days. That opens up extra spot elsewhere too. So, I know we had here running back or wide receiver. McKinney, done for preseason. He's got a calf injury too. So, just in general, the injuries are seeming to be racking up here quite a bit. Emmanuel Wilson's got a knee. Reed's got a foot. Watson's, got his knee. Wicks has got a calf. Walker's got a groin. He might as well put half of this team on the injuries. Packers are doing, what they do best and taking precaution. And really, we'll get into what this means for the Jets game, but this is really going to let a lot of your rookies and back end depth kind of come in and compete and see what we have. So it stinks for the injuries. I'm sure it'll be fine for week 1 for about 95% of these players, if not more, but really excited to see some of this competition.
Yeah, I'd be the first to admit that, personally, I haven't been like the highest on Travis Glover. Last time we saw him play in a game against the Eagles, that was a disaster. But, he seemingly has been climbing into a 53-man roster spot again, that he's been working with the 2s. He's even been worked in with the 1s. It is disappointing to be able to see him have a preseason to kind of see his progression, and that'll be it for him. We'll hope to see him in 2026 again. The McKinney injury, I am a little less worried about that. Obviously, you don't want to see one of your star players hurt and miss any time, but he is a vet. He's in his second year in the system. I'm pretty sure that he'll know what he needs to do to get his body right and his mind right for week 1 or week 2 or, whenever we see him. Hopefully he's ready for week 1 because obviously we have a pretty big game against the Lions to open up the season. And as we've talked about on this show before, those division games are important. So having the leader of your secondary and your defense miss that game, that could be pretty monumental. at the time, kind of a wrap up thing from Travis Glover is that they did fill his spot with Isaiah Naylor, which is a rookie. He is a wide receiver that was an undrafted free agent with the Niners, recently released. But he played for a couple colleges, ended his college career at Nebraska. And he was, let's see here, some stats. He played 12 games, 9 starts, led the Cornhuskers with 5 touchdowns, and was number 2 on the team with 455 yards on 34 receptions. He did earn earn second team All Mountain West honors after having a pretty good season with Wyoming a few years ago. So and looks like he's going to take Bo Melton's old number 80. So if he makes this roster somehow, unlikely with the wide receiver depth we have, you'll see him floating around out there in that number. So just one other item to note, if you did, follow our draft guide that we released, he was somebody that was a gold tier player for us, and somebody that I frankly would have been excited to draft in the 7th round. That's where I had him ranked, or the back end of the draft. If we would have signed him as a priority, street free agent, would have been really excited about that. So excited to get him in the system, and, hoping that maybe they can retain him as a practice squad guy if things go well. So he's got a lot of speed as well. He runs a 4.40, a little faster than Savion Williams. He had an excellent RAS score. I think he had a 9.98 RAS. So one of the best RAS scores of all wide receivers at this year's combine. So, but yeah, with that, let's jump into the Jets game. So as you listen to this, if you're listening on Saturday, the game is tonight. It's going to be on NFL Network, so everybody should have an opportunity to watch that if you have cable. Both teams have indicated at this point in time that they are going to play their starters for, a predetermined amount of time. I don't know really how long the Packers starters will play. If I had to say, they'll probably go out and play a series or two. Matt LaFleur really just kind of wants to start working them into game action and game speed. He says there's a lot of research out there that getting, game reps early on can help mitigate injuries, as you get into the regular season and really ramp things up. You just obviously have to avoid that you don't have an unfortunate thing happen and have a big injury during the game. Well, unrelated note to this, but Rob, did you see that that the Chargers lost Rashawn Slater for the year?
Yeah, that's brutal. Not sure who the backup is over there, if they're going to be in the market for a left tackle, but yeah, all pro stud left tackle. That's just nightmarish scenarios, right? We saw that with Aaron Rodgers, with Bakhtiari going out. So that sucks for any team. That's brutal for the Chargers.
Yeah, and he signed his contract just after Zach Tom for a significant amount more than Zach Tom signed his contract. I think they gave him 4 years, $114 million. So that's a tough loss for the team. And after signing him to a monumental contract, as you said, with players like David Bakhtiari or whatever, he's pretty young, much younger than Bakhtiari was when he got his injury, but you still don't want to see your star players tear up their knee in the preseason. So, but what are you expecting to see out of this Jets game tonight? Whether it's from, a few possessions from the starters, or what are some of the other things that you're looking at in tonight's game?
I mean, honestly, 2 players, Matthew Golden. Well, sorry, 3. Jordan Love, just because Jordan Love. Matthew Golden, because there's just so much hype. I'm just going to be keen in on him. If that's a series or 2, that'll be great. Other than that. And then on the other side, Mr. Bo Melton, who's also big in a ton of hype, making a lot of plays from what I've been seeing too. He's going to get a legit shot at doing cornerback. And from the reps I was seeing, man, he looks very, very natural. So I'm excited to see that up against some competition. And then selfishly, kind of like on the other side, on the Jets side, Justin Fields, right? Goes from Chicago to Pittsburgh, now over to New York. He's going to get a clean slate, working with new head coach and Aaron Glenn. So how that's going to look. Historically, we've done very, very well against Justin Fields and previously the Chicago Bears when he was with them. Garrett Wilson and that whole team, just how that's all going to operate over there. I think you're going to have a lot of people playing very hard on defense. and I think you're going to see a lot of vanilla plays on offense. So it's not anything that's going to be too crazy, but those are a couple of backups. Isaiah Simmons, I guess I'd throw in there with Tyron Hopper too as well. God, man, Warren Brinson, Stackhouse. Now that I'm thinking about it as well, I guess more than a few different ones, but my three big ones: Jordan Love, Matthew Golden, and Bo Melton.
Yeah, I cannot wait to see if the hype that surrounds Matthew Golden even gets close to matching, what we'll see out there on the field tonight. It's preseason, so he might only, he might be a player that they might play a series or two more than the like vet starters, right? Because they're probably going to want him to get a little bit more acclimated, so maybe they put him out there with Malik Willis and he gets like a third or a fourth series, but I expect them to be cautious with him as well, given the hype that surrounds him and supposedly the role that he's going to play on this team with how good he is. So it'll be just really good to. So go ahead, Rob.
I was just gonna say, sorry to interrupt you, but man, I've been watching some stuff on NFL and ESPN from like Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, and like it feels like he's entering in even before he's played a game, wide receiver one mode. Is that the feeling that you're getting to with him?
I think they're being really supportive and trying to really build his confidence because I think they see the talent that he can be. I still think that I would be hard pressed to say that he's going to be the Packers' leading, receiver in targets at the end of the season. But I do expect him to make a substantial impact at this point in time. You mentioned Bo Melton as well, and I think that Bo Melton is in line to start this game now. And of course, we have a couple injuries. Nate Hobbs is going to miss the game due to some time he's got to take away to clean up after his knee was scoped and cleaned up. Um, it depends on, what happens with Nixon. I think that they're planning on starting Bo Melton, and we're going to get a long, hard look at him. And he's probably one of those starters, too, that probably plays a substantial amount of snaps. You're going to see a lot of this secondary, I think, go out there and compete at various, times in the game to kind of sort that room out. We think that we know who the top 3 or 4 guys are right now, and then it truthfully is an open competition for, cornerback 4, 5, 6 on this roster as it stands. Speaking of cornerbacks, one other player that I am interested in on the other side of the ball is I'm really excited to get a close up look at AZ Thomas, which the Jets drafted in the 3rd round. We obviously spent a large portion of the pre-draft process hoping and wishing that we could end up with somebody like AZ Thomas in the 2nd or 3rd round. And he was drafted before the Packers had a chance to take Xavier Williams, but I think that was a part of that brutal run that we talked about that kind of led to that selection. Of course, the Packers have said, like at that point in time, we couldn't have passed on Xavier Williams regardless of a lot of other players out there. But you have to wonder if AZ Thomas was available in that spot, if he would have been the player. And then all of this conversation, most of this conversation about the Packers cornerback depth and did they do enough to add and what does that room look like? I mean, it would hardly even be a conversation at this point in time. We would be just looking forward to seeing what a guy like AZ Thomas could do for us as a 3rd or 4th corner on this roster. So, not like I'm kind of hoping that he does look good to kind of confirm some priors that we thought he was going to be a good NFL player. But it also kind of sting if he looks really good and you're like, yeah, it would have been kind of nice to have him on this roster.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the ones that we really liked. I liked his tape out of Florida State. I thought he would have been really would have fit in well within Halfley's system for the Packers. So I couldn't agree more. I'll be interested to see how he does too over on that other side.
There's a couple other Packers connections. Not that there's going to be like any kind of like revenge game here, but Josh Myers. Yep. And actually, Andrew Beck is also, the number 1 fullback on the Jets roster right now as well. He obviously spent time with the Packers last year. Most of the other Packers additions that came over in the Aaron Rodgers era, have kind of come and gone at this point in time. But there are some connections there, and it will be interesting to see. One thing that I'm very intrigued about too is that, Justin Fields is probably not going to play, more than a couple series, but we are going to face a significant amount of time against Tyrod Taylor, which has played in this league for a really long time. He's a vet. He's been a starter. He's been a fill-in starter as a backup. He's somebody who is, like, you got to feel there's not that many great number two backup quarterbacks in the league that you feel really confident about. If I were the Jets, I'd feel pretty confident about having Tyrod Taylor on my roster the way that we feel about having Malik Willis on our roster. So this will be a good test for our secondary to have to go up and face a veteran like him for a large number of snaps.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. I'm sure he'll get a ton of playing time too. Maybe, back half of the first quarter, second quarter, then third. I don't know. They might switch it up halftime. They might just let the backups of the backups come on in and do cleanup duty back there. But yeah, that's why it's going to be a really kind of fun preseason game to watch. Not only because it's the first one, but because you're really going to get to see quite a bit from these rookies and from this backup cornerback depth, and kind of see who comes up and shines.
Yeah, and just from a numbers game, like I think Javon Bullard's going to have to play quite a bit in this game, but I also think that they're going to want him to play quite a bit in this game. I've heard mixed reports from him so far in camp. I've heard at times he's struggled in man coverage in that slot position. So I think they're going to give him some time to work it out. And again, having to go up against a quarterback like that, that's a true litmus test for maybe what we can see or expect from Javon Bullard this season. But, besides after Melton, we're going to get a chance to get Corey Ballantyne reacclimated to this roster and see where he fits in. Probably not going to see Kamal Haddon. I think he's injured with that hip injury right now. But Kalen King, I'm hoping to see some Micah Robinson. Actually, commenters let us know. But, Rob and I have not heard a lot about the status of Micah Robinson. We did a little bit of research. We don't see him currently on the injured list. So that would lead me to believe that he is practicing or doing some walkthroughs in some capacity. But it would be really nice to see where Micah Robinson fits into the bigger picture of things in this secondary. So I got a couple other positions we're going to look at. One is the offensive line, Rob. And, again, a lot of the starters are going to play a limited period of time, but I expect to see a lot of Jordan Morgan, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, Anthony Belton. I think all of them have something substantial to prove in terms of earning playing time on this roster. I've heard that Jordan Morgan has been struggling at tackle a little bit, looking pretty solid at guard. How do you think he's going to hold up in this game at tackle? And do you think that he's gonna show the Packers nation that he's the tackle that the Packers are touting him that he can be?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens. The Jets are known for their fierce defensive line. I think that's going to continue with Aaron Glenn as the head coach, depending on who does or does not start. I don't know if they'll play Quinnen Williams, probably not. But anyways, that's not the point. He's getting schooled by Lucas Van Ness, from us and our starters too. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how he holds up with that left tackle reps that he'll be getting. I'll be curious to see Monk too. He had a really good preseason last year. Was a healthy scratch, I think, for most of the year after the end of the regular season. But I loved what I saw from him in preseason. Jennings will be a good one too to see where he gets in and get some reps. And then Anthony Belton, I'm really excited to see what positions, if he's playing right tackle, if he switches over, plays a little bit left tackle. I'm sure they'll mix and match and do that sort of stuff too. But yeah, with Glover being out for the season too, I think they're really going to, get some other people in there and try and see who comes out, the best and can hold up the best against a really good defensive line in the Jets.
Rasheed Walker likely missing the game. I don't think that they're probably going to chance him playing with his current injury. So that means Jordan Morgan's probably going to start. And I anticipate they keep Morgan in there. Let's just say they play the Packers regular starters for 2 series. I kind of expect the offensive line to look like this. Keep Jordan Morgan in, and when they make that line change And then you can see Donovan Jennings at left guard. I think that they might keep Sean Ryan in the game, but
Yeah.
move him to center for a series or two just to kind of make sure that he's got some reps there, kind of see what you have. Then you can see Jacob Monk shift into that right guard role and then have Anthony Belton over there at right tackle. So that will
Yeah.
be a really, really interesting unit to watch kind of after the initial starters sub out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you'll eventually see Jordan Morgan leave the game and have a guy like Kadeem Telfort come in. I don't know if they'll bump Belton over to play left tackle and put Kadeem in at right tackle. I would expect that Jacob Monk, after Sean Ryan is done with his reps, would probably get a large share of the rest of the game at center at that point in time until maybe late when, our recent addition, Lecterius Smith, comes in and plays probably some center for you then. But, then you're going to see all those other undrafted free agents get a chance to try to make a case for the Packers to keep 10 offensive linemen. I don't know they will anymore. We didn't really touch on it before, but, with kind of Glover going out for the season, I don't think that they really need to keep more than 9 offensive linemen. We talked previously about them keeping 10, but I kind of think that there's a lot of guys competing for just one spot on the opening day roster at this point in time. So, wide receiver too, I mean, that's a position we're obviously keeping an eye on. We know who our top 4 guys are, but there is going to be a big battle between McCole Hardman, Malik Heath at this point in time. We're going to see plenty of time from those other more practice squad type of wide receivers, Naylor, who we just picked up, and Cornelius Johnson, stuff like that. So, but we kind of know how they're going to factor out. So that's kind of the offensive side of the ball in some battles, but defensive side of the ball, I'm really intrigued by what we're going to see out of the linebacker room there, because not only is Simmons kind of competing for that starting spot that when you're in a base 4-3, but they're probably only going to keep 5 linebackers on this roster. Is Tyron Hopper safe? Is Jamin Johnson, is he going to push for a roster spot over Christian Welch? I don't know. How do you think that that's going to play out in this game? And if you had to make a guess at it right now, what does that linebacker room look like come week 1, Rob?
Yeah, well, backup wise, Hopper's been looking really good in training camp. He's been making a lot of plays from what I've been hearing and seeing from the beat writers and the tape that I've seen. Isaiah Simmons, though, he's a freak, right?
Uh-huh.
And historically, at least up to his time now, he's been splitting positions from safety to linebacker and linebacker back to safety. And now he's getting just linebacker reps to concentrate on that position too. So I think there's a lot of value in keeping him. So for sure, Walker, McDuffie, Simmons, Hopper. I mean, I don't know. I don't think Jamin Johnson makes it. And then Christian Welch, I think if you let him go again, I don't know if you're going to be able to retain him on the practice squad. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but he got picked up right away when you let him go last year too. So he was a really good preseason player for us last year. I think he's one of our best preseason players too. So that's how I kind of see it working out, at least in the base 4-3 defense.
Yeah, you didn't mention Edrin Cooper, but I
Adrian
think
Cooper, yes.
it's an obvious that he's entrenched at starter, right now. So I assume our listeners know and feel that Edrin Cooper is safe, but
Yes.
that's definitely where we stand. What about the edge room, Rob? Who are you looking at there, and who do you think has the most to lose or gain from some strong preseason performances that may be hovering around the cut line?
I mean, Anik Bari, we talked about him a little bit from before, but he could be kind of maybe a surprise cut. Really, really like Cox Jr. I think he's got maybe a little bit of a leg up. And plus, he's just getting a lot of hype from the coaches and anybody that's speaking of him. He's had a pretty good camp, I've heard so far. Mosby's your speedster, right, too? And then Byron Sorrell, the 4th-round pick out of Texas. I'm very, very excited to see what he has. Looks like he's got some speed off the edge along with some power, too. So, but that'll be another really cool preseason watch here for the Jets and how much run he gets and how much of an impact he can make on this defensive line, because I think they'll ease him into the season, but depending on how he plays, I think he could make some noise depending on how, Lucas Van Ness, obviously, and Barry Cox Jr. play to mix in there and play with some of the starters during the season at some point. So excited to see what Barron Sorrell's got.
Yeah, and make it clear, like, his spot is 100% secure on this roster as a fourth-round selection this year. He's not on the cut line, but I do think that if he plays close to or as well as Kingsley Enagbare, he can safely cement himself as that edge 4. And maybe that's where, Enagbare is expendable, or, there's probably going to be an edge needy team due to an injury or something like that. I mean, it could be very similar to, like a couple trades from last year, but, maybe we end up flipping Kingsley Enagbare for a 7th-round selection at the end of the preseason to a team who has some injuries or just wants a little bit more edge depth that they don't have on their roster right now. The like strong play of Barron Sorrell is really going to have to solidify that, though. If he looks like a rookie and looks like he's got a lot to figure out, very likely that the Packers want to keep somebody on the roster that knows the system and they've trusted in the past and Enagbare. So, and just lastly, kind of keeping an eye on the safety room. Obviously, after family night, there's a ton of hype around Omar Brown, but, I think Zane Anderson is beloved by Rich Bisaccia. I wouldn't exactly call his spot safe on this team. I mean, you've also got some other intriguing UDFAs like Jonathan Baldwin. I know he's listed at corner, but I think I've seen practice reports that he's almost exclusively been practicing with the safety group. So we'll see if Omar Brown can stay on his heater and really give the Packers brass something to think about going into cut down days.
Yeah, Omar Brown, I mean, family night, 2 of those balls are absolutely gifted towards him. He did have 3 in the night, but the one he did make a really good play on. So, and he was definitely the star of that night too. I mean, I think interceptions come in a couple of ways. I think you got to be in the right place at the right time. And then I think you got to make very, instinctive, throw a punch, at the ball type of, make your own luck type of stuff too. And he was in the former part of that. He was in the right spots at the right time. And he also made a really good play on a ball too. So I'm excited to what we can see from him in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, I think that's all that we have for you today, Packers fans. Just know that we do have new content every Wednesday and Saturday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Please make sure to give us a like, sub, and follow us on those platforms. Share with a family member or friends, or any other Packers friends that you might know that like to nerd out as much as we do. We are on the socials as well. I'm at Sounds Gouda with 3 A's, and Jordan is at Olsen. But that is all that we have for you. We hope that you have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Take care. Go Pack Go.
Been wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better.